All right, so we're here to reflect on our teaching and our field experience. We taught a grade 9 boys PE class at St. Michael's University School. Um, really excited that we were able to do that. We're going to reflect on lesson 1 right now, which I was the main teacher for, and we'll reflect throughout the other lessons later on.
Okay, Evan, describe a situation of your lesson, referring to things as number of students, the context, and setup.
All right, well, we were really excited because we were able to work with just 15 students at St. Michael's, so that's the beauty of working there. We were able to really have one-on-one time instruction with the students, so we knew that going into it, and so we planned our lessons accordingly. However, although 15 students were in the class, only 13 students showed up for the first lesson. We were able to use the space. We had a whole gym to ourselves really effectively with 4 pickleball courts. We were teaching pickleball, by the way, forgot to mention that. So it was we had a really big space that we were able to really use effectively. For setup, we actually showed up to the class about 10 minutes early and used, much like Dr. Hopper in his class, the hula hoops to set up and divide the equipment. What was really interesting is that the teacher, Mel, before the class even started, students came early, and it seemed as though Mel had rules and routines established in our class where students came and just started playing with equipment as soon as they got there, as long as it was done in a safe manner. So as we were setting up equipment, students came and the pickleball courts were already set up and they just started playing. So that was really neat to see. We didn't even have to say anything. I thought that was really a really neat thing that she already had set up with the students.
So Evan, explain what you intended to happen in our first lesson.
All right, well, we wanted to give them an introduction to pickleball, so we actually started them off with just playing the game for 10 minutes. They were coming into the class. A lot of the students had never played pickleball before. A couple of them had experience if they went to SMU in grade 8. Their grade 8 teacher did a pickleball unit with them. I'm not sure to the extent of it, so they seem a little bit familiar with it, but about maybe 4 or 5 students, they had never played pickleball before, so we wanted to give them an idea of what actually this sport entailed and just give them a time to play. We then were able to use that play that they had at the beginning of the class to talk about some tactical strategies in the game. And we were actually really surprised. Although we didn't phrase it as like using tactical awareness and strategies and all these big words, they actually responded to things like time and space. They came up with those answers by themselves. Whether that's typical of a high school class, I'm not sure, but we were actually shocked that they were able to use or respond to questions like how do we create time for ourselves by hitting the ball up in the air. They answered right away, so it was really interesting to see that. So for our first lesson, we focused on the concepts of time and space and how to use that to create more time for yourself, to decrease the time for your opponent, and to also use space effectively through a pickleball. So we started with wall ball, and this is a really good example and a really good game to use to demonstrate that. We had students, and also working on skill as well. So we had spots on the wall and lines on the ground, and we were able to adapt that based on their skill level and their success rate to make it more challenging for themselves, so they're understanding how they can use time and space effectively. This also allowed us to incorporate things like establishing base, as well as certain techniques with our racket and how we're supposed to move our body. We then moved from a single wall ball player to actually playing in teams, and we had them playing cooperatively together. We actually had a really interesting scenario when we first said, all right, you're going to play with your opponent against the wall, and they started playing, and they started right away trying to beat each other. And all I had to say, I said, all right, just stop there. And I said, okay, now let's work together you're working together as a team and see how many you can rally in a row. And after that, for the next 2 or 3 minutes, I don't think a student dropped a ball. It was insane. Like, balls were flying, and just that one comment just stopped everything. Yeah.
So, Evan, next we're going to talk about how does your actions as a teacher promote the learning environment with regards to things like feedback and tasks?
Well, I think coming into it, our goal was to limit the amount of time we're actually speaking in front of the class. I think it's easy as student teachers to come into the classroom and bombard them with all this new kind of information to teach as teachers and new styles as a teacher or in the pedagogy field. But we wanted to actually give students an opportunity to play. and to learn based on looking at each other playing as well. And so we used a reciprocal style of teaching to be able to achieve that. With the wall ball I just talked about, we used, when we had the partners, when we had them in partners, we had a player hitting against the wall and a coach there coaching them on certain aspects of the skill and certain tactical strategies we gave them. I keep saying tactical strategies, but I mean the tactical concepts in the game and the strategies. Anyway, so we actually, when we circulated around the room, we were sure to talk to the actual coach and not the actual students so that they had a chance to give the feedback properly. If we were to go up to the student and give the feedback, then we'd be kind of ignoring the role that that coach is playing in the process, in the teaching process.
I just want to add on, since we had uneven numbers, we were also quick to add like a group of 3.
Yeah.
So rather than like having one of us jumping in, we just incorporated all the students, and then you're still able to, when people playing cooperatively, you can still have that one outside coach looking, watching both and giving feedback to both, which was kind of a bonus, really.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And another thing to do with the environment in the pairs, Evan had actually printed out pickles, and so the pickle was the spot, because the St. Michael's doesn't have the spots and the lines, so he printed out pickles, and then the pairs were based on, we gave them each randomly a pickle, and they would just go with whoever had the same picture. And that way, nobody was left out, everyone had a card, and they were put into groups that way, so nobody was like, oh, I don't have a group, nobody wanted to be my partner.
And it was kind of fun too because the pickles were all different different types of pickles, like Super Pickle and
Delivery Boy Pickle.
Pickle.
It was very good.
So it was the students I think found that kind of funny too, and also that's some feedback we got from Mel as well that kind of engaged the class pretty well.
So what did the students learn?
Well, what they really did learn what we intended for them to learn, the concepts of time and space. By the end of it, they were using those words, and they were able to play. We played Spot Rally at the end of the class, so transferring their understanding from wall ball onto the actual court again. And they were using things like time and space really effectively, and using actually those words as well, which is really good for them to understand. So I think we actually achieved the goal of what they learned.
They also learned how to work cooperatively rather than competitively.
Yeah.
I think we found out really quickly that this class seemed to be a competitive class, just the way they started playing wall ball against each other than with each other. So once we were able to get them to work cooperatively, they're having just as much fun as they were before.
So how do you know learning happened, considering the learning domains?
Well, as we just talked about, working in cooperation is really important for that effective domain. So that was our goal with the effective domain, and especially getting to know the students as well. So that social connection between students and teachers, we wanted to stress the importance of that as well, especially being new. We wanted to understand. Yeah, and with both of them, with each other as well. So it's a really unique and dynamic environment to come into the class and not really know the students and be able to understand who they are based on their interactions with us. So we wanted to stress the importance of that, and then all the psychomotor skills like we talked about before. So we talked about making your base and effective techniques on the racket, so that they're able to develop over these 3 lessons, they're able to develop and turn these techniques into something that's skillful in a game setting.
So how do you think your overall lesson went?
I'm really happy with it. I think it was my first opportunity in a PE classroom. I've coached before, but never actually in a classroom, so I think that was really, it's different. It is different. Coaching, I feel like you can be a lot more flexible, and you're really just working with athletes in a setting that they want to be there. So I'm not saying that the students in our PE class didn't want to be there, I just feel like the effort that they put in wasn't the same that you would get in a competitive athletic environment. So I think adapting my teaching style to that setting, I think, was a challenge. It was a challenge, but I think I was successful in that. An interesting comment that I need to be aware of in the class, I think is kind of funny, is that throughout the whole first part of the class, I really wanted to make sure that the students were and established good that students were on task and we established good habits with the students. So I would yell out, and I yelled this out 3 times, When the balls were flying all over the place, I would yell, "All right, students, grab your balls." And then I realized that although I'm trying to manage the situation, maybe what I'm saying is not the best, as it could be taken a little wrong.
The funny part of this is that us as teachers and Mel as our supervisor are the only ones who picked up on it. The grade 9 boys were very mature and
So
at least none of them outwardly were
In
laughing.
a different classroom, though, I don't know if that'd be the case.
Yeah.
So I definitely need to be aware of what I'm saying so that I'm able to translate my message across effectively. And anyway, just a funny thing that happened, and I won't do that again.